Well, fine, good afternoon all. This is Patricia and I'm traveling for history. I'm in Madison, Vermont today at Chimney Point State Historic Park. And this part here, I'm inside the tavern at this time. And when you start, if you're going to start at the oldest section, then this is the area you want to start in, talking about the Native American history of the Chimney Point area. So the area that we now call Chimney Point is located at a major narrows in the southern portion of Lake Champlain. Travel across the lake was easy here, with sheltered areas to land canoes. The topography of the point and depth of the water helped sustain a rich environment for fish, birds, and many other species of wildlife. As visitors today will immediately notice, Chimney Point also offered expansive views of the lake and provided an important vantage for hunting, travel, and defense. On the north side of the point, Hospital Creek afforded easy access into the vast wetlands surrounding Dead Creek. Because of all these factors, Native Americans migrated to Chimney Point to live, celebrate, and exchange goods soon after the Champlain Sea receded from the Champlain Basin 10,000 years ago. Archaeological excavations at Chimney Point have revealed a long and intense record of Native American occupation. The following timeline highlights the rich history of the Native people who lived in the Madison County area and regularly traveled across or settled at this special place. Here are some of their stone tools. Right here is a list of what these things are and how they were used. It says 2 ways to make stone tools. Native Americans in Vermont generally used 2 ways to make stone tools. There's the ground stone technique, which is on the left side here. Hard stones, such as basalt or granite, were slowly ground, pecked, and polished to create tools, including axes, celts, gouges, pestles, and fish net weights. The process involved taking a block of hard stone and using a hard hammer stone to peck it into an approximate shape. These partially formed tools are called preforms by archaeologists. To finish the toolmaker would grind the preform with abrasive stones and finally with sand and water to smooth away the uneven surfaces and to form sharp edges where needed. This process could take hundreds of hours. And on this side, this is the flaked stone technique. The flaked stone method was used to create tools out of stone, such as chert, quartzite, chalcedony, and rhyolite, which typically break like glass along even, smooth plains. Native peoples extracted blocks of these special stones from ledges or cobbles. They carefully hit them with another stone, antler, or other hard material so that fragments flaked off in a regular, predictable way. Archaeologists call this process flint knapping. And maybe that term is familiar to you because I had filmed a man who was flint knapping last year. All right, walking around. Stone tools for tool making. This talks about it more. So let's see. From left to right, the ones that are numbered here starting at 1. This is a Cheshire quartzite, the most common stone for tool making. It stands sandstone metamorphosed into a crystalline structure as a result of prolonged heat and pressure. Extremely abundant in Vermont, it's found as outcrops along the foothills and flanks of the central and south central Green Mountains, and as glacially dispersed cobbles and boulders. Number 2 is an Otter Creek Point, circa 6,000 to 5,000 years ago. Champlain Valley chert, C-H-E-R-T, also common, is found in outcrops around the perimeter of the Lake Champlain Basin. It's pearly blue to blue-gray, with frequent holes resulting from material that had eroded out of the chert over time. Its most striking aspect is its variable but marked translucency, particularly along edge margins. Number 3, the Brewerton Point, 5,000 to 4,000 years ago. And now 4, 5, and 6 are stones from outside of Vermont. Archaeologists have found artifacts made of stone from areas far outside of Vermont. Examples made from non-local or quote-unquote exotic raw materials include Mount Kineo Rhyolite from Mount Kineo, Moosehead Lake, Maine. It is often a striking green color with large, prominent white phenocrystals of feldspar. Number 4 is the Susquehanna blade, circa 3,800 to 3,200 years ago. Wyandotte Chert, sometimes called Indiana Hornstone, is from several quarry sites in Wyandotte County, Indiana. It was traded widely across the eastern woodlands in the early woodland period. It ranges from light to dark gray or blue-gray with a fine texture. Number 5 is Chimney Point, 3,000 to 2,100 years ago. Western Onondaga Chert is found in limestone outcrops along an escarpment running from southern Ontario across western New York State. It is dark gray to blue-gray, often with mottles of lighter gray to tan, usually with a smooth and waxy texture. This stone was traded widely during the woodland period, circa 3,000 years ago, to European contact. And number 6 is circa 1,000 years ago to European contact. As we walk around, we can see there's a wide variety of boards here. Please feel free to pause the video so you can read what they say. So that one there, we were just looking at the Paleo-Indian period, 12,900 to 9,500 years before present. This is the early and middle Archaic periods, 9,500 to 6,000 years before the present time. This one is the late Archaic period, 6,000 to 3,000 years before present. So they're talking BC here. We'll come back to that one in just a moment. Early woodland period, 3,000 to 2,100 years before present. I know there's a glare on there. And then over here is middle and late woodland periods, 2,100 years before present to 1550 AD. What is this? Talking about pipes here. The first tobacco and smoking pipes in Vermont date from the early woodland period when smoking was a rare and highly ritualized event. By the late woodland period, tobacco smoking was widespread and used in ceremonies, rituals, exchanges, and greetings. In Vermont, it's not known how much tobacco was grown locally and how much was acquired from trade with neighbors to the south and west. A number of late woodland stone and clay pipe fragments with varying designs and forms, exhibited below, were recovered during archaeological excavations at Chimney Point. Isn't that fascinating? Oh, no, up here too. Over here we have all right, so down below here, these are Paleo-Indian, 12,900 to 9,500 years before present. Sorry, the light is behind me. Here we have the Archaic period, 9,500 to 3,000 years before present. Here we have woodland period, 3,000 years before present to 1550, excuse me, AD. And then here we have contact period, 1550 AD. This is the history in layers. I mean, look at these. We have a hatchet. 2 is a pipe axe. Combination pipe and axe blades date from the early 1700s or before. Wow. Aren't these amazing? This is why it's always great to go to museums. I mean, I learned so much by reading everything. We have some projectile points, styles, and materials. Look at that one, that big one, number 7. Well, what's number 7? Susquehanna blade, circa 3,800 to 3,200 years ago, unknown, coarse chert. Interesting. Snowshoes, circa 1915. Some Abenaki craftspeople made snowshoes for the military stationed at Fort Ethan Allen in Colchester and Essex, Vermont during World War I. Tufts of red yarn and elk or moose hair along the edges characterize these Native American-made snowshoes. Huh. And they are visible to the naked eye, right along here, on the edges there. How cool is that? Native Americans after European contact. The top picture, Marion Bomsawin, second from left, with friends and family at their Thompson's Point home in Charlotte, where she sold handcrafts to tourists. And in the bottom picture, representatives of Vermont's 4 recognized native tribes and Governor Peter Champlain, former Governor Peter Champlain, celebrate the state recognition of the Missisquoi and Coasec of the Coas in 2012. Left to right are Elnu Chief Roger Longtoe, Nuligan Chief Don Stevens, Coasec Chief Nancy Doucette, former Governor Champlain, Missisquoi Acting Chief John Churchill. This is a partridge mask in front of us, circa 1989. It's not a Sinaqua. Sinaqua's partridge mask captures the image of traditional Abenaki stories in contemporary art. Partridges often are portrayed as magicians and legends. They are regarded as powerful animals because of the loud drumming sound they make in flight. Wow, how neat is that? I know I say that a lot, but it is neat. Then over here we have a mortar and pestle. In the late Archaic period, which was 6,000 to 3,000 years before present, people were making stone pestles to grind nuts and grains for food production. On the narrow end of the long stone pestle, found in Vermont, appears to be a slight indent. Perhaps this is evidence that a cord was used to attach it to a spring pole, as seen in the illustration. And back here, there's the turned wood mortar and pestle, which were owned by the Barnes family, who came here in 1822. A metal mortar and pestle can be seen on a shelf in the tavern room. And this is what they made over here. this picture back here. Right there. Another series of displays in this room. Chimney Point, point of contact. Pointe à la Chevelure, Chimney Point. What's in a name? Chimney Point has had several names since Europeans arrived in the area. The French used the first recorded name of Pointe à la Chevelure, or Scalp Point. French priest Emmanuel Crespel, the Fort St. Frederick chaplain from 1735 to 1736, wrote that the point got the name de Chevalier from the Sauvage, native peoples. He noted the custom of scalping enemies, quote unquote, began at this point after a battle. In the battle, quote, many of the Indians had their scalps taken, which gave the name to the place where the battle occurred, unquote. The English translated chevalier as crown, the top of one's head. The name can be found in French and English documents as early as the 1680s. The English name of Crown Point was first used for the Vermont side of the lake and later only for the New York side. On July 31, 1759, the French settlers and soldiers burned their houses on both sides of the lake, blew up Fort St. Frederick, and returned to Canada ahead of their advancing English enemies. Only one chimney remained, leading to the name that is still used today, Chimney Point. Great story, isn't it? Some more artifacts here. Looking at that, what is that? It must be a bolt. Yep, it's from construction of the 2011 Lake Champlain Bridge. But it gets to the nuts and bolts of history, doesn't it? Oh, I had to. We have a faucet there. Copper spigot or barrel tap, late 1700s or early 1800s. What's the key? Door key, Chimney Point Tavern cellar. Number 12 must be a coin. Spanish real coin, counterfeit. Copy or counterfeit of historic Spanish real coin. What's number 8, that ball there? Crotal bell, 1700s or 1800s. Crotal bells were used on horse-drawn vehicles to warn other travelers of their approach. They often were made of bronze with a slot cut down the side. Interesting. All right, what's number 3? Number 3, drinking glass stem, 1780 to 1805, thereabouts. Ooh, number 6. Militia rifleman's button, circa 1820s to 30s, planchet-type die-stamped button. Number 6. Number 13. That is a glass flask fragment. Has the Success to Railroads pattern, circa 1825 to 1850. Fragment of molded glass flask, first made in 1825 at a New England or New York glassworks. Such flasks, often used for whiskey, displayed a range of historical figures or important events. This one celebrates the expansion of the railroad system. If complete, the words "Success to the Railroad" would be in raised letters along the edge of the flask faces. Nifty, eh? 1609, the year that Samuel de Champlain arrived. And he's the one who named Lake Champlain. Of course he did. This tells you all about him and his visit. I'll read a little bit of this sign to you. In 1609, French navigator and map maker Samuel de Champlain became the first known European to enter the lake that would carry his name. He traveled at least as far south as Chimney Point with 2 Frenchmen and some Algonquin, Huron, and Montagnais allies. European and native contact in the greater area began in the 1500s, with Europeans looking for a passage to Asia via the St. Lawrence River in Canada. When that failed, attention turned to developing commercial fishing and fur trade ventures with the native peoples. Champlain's travels in the early 1600s expanded these contacts and contributed to far-reaching changes in the region. And what is this? It's a reproduction of a late woodland period ceramic pot, circa 1400 to circa 1600. Beautiful though, isn't it? Gosh darn it. New souvenir. We remember. You can see this is the license plate that came out in 2009. It was the 400th anniversary of the Samuel de Champlain's discovery of Lake Champlain. I remember that. It was quadricentennial. All right, so I'll go ahead and read this to you. A lot of interesting pieces of history here, so much history, in such a small space. So starting here, in the 19th century, French Canadians from Quebec province moved to Vermont in several waves to seek new opportunities. They were hired to work on farms or in such industries as the growing lumber trade in Burlington. During the 1830s, patriot activists, protesters of English rule and taxation in Quebec, sought refuge in Vermont. Some stayed and were joined by new waves of immigrants who labored in the new textile mills, railroads, or stone quarries. Mutual aid societies, Catholic parishes, French newspapers, and parochial schools supported their French culture, while separating them from the mostly Anglo environment. Over time, some families anglicized their last names. Their French heritage was submerged as they assimilated into the larger population to avoid prejudices or to embrace American life. Between the 1930s and 1960s, French language church parishes closed, and fewer children learned the French language or their history. Controls along the U.S.-Canada border tightened, slowing the flow of Quebec immigrants. French-Canadian neighborhoods, Petit Canada, dwindled as the mills closed by the 1960s. Some families returned to Quebec or moved elsewhere for jobs. The 1970s and 80s saw a cultural revival of traditional French-Canadian fiddle music, dance, and crafts. Pride and awareness of the importance of French culture and heritage were raised with the 2009 commemoration of the 400th anniversary of Samuel de Champlain's arrival on Lake Champlain. Today, approximately 22% of all Vermonters identify themselves as French or Franco-Americans. And also, I just want to mention that the reason why so many French Canadians came down to Vermont to work is because Vermont, certainly Vermont businesses, mills and the like, had printed out pamphlets to encourage them to come down and work here. Plenty of sunshine, plenty of light, plenty of places to be and to live. It was encouraging people to come here to work in the mills. Leave your farms, leave your way of life, and come here and work for us instead. And people did. Come down here in droves. This is about the Vermont's textile mill companies, how often recruited in Quebec villages, promising a better life and employment possibilities. See? This economic opportunity appealed to many French Canadians who relied on all family members to run their Quebec farms. Mill jobs could be dangerous or unhealthy. Children who worked full-time in the mills could not go to school. And let's see, what does it say? They were in a mule spinning room in Chase Cotton Mill, Burlington, Vermont. Leopold Dano and Arsène Lucier, back roping boys. This is a Louis H.W. Hine 1909 photograph. Hine was a photographer, of course. The way it worked for kids and going to school or the mills, if those kids weren't doing well in school, the schoolmaster would reach out to the mill manager and mill owner and say, hey, I've got some more employees for you. If kids were truant, off to the mills they went. If they were doing poorly in school, off to the mills they went. If people thought they wouldn't get anywhere in life, off to the mills they went. This man here, Louis de Gosbrand, became Bishop of Burlington in Vermont in 1852. He brought many French-speaking priests to serve in area parishes. By 1890, Vermont had 10 French-language parishes, and the Catholic Church became a cornerstone of French cultural survival. If you live in Burlington, you probably remember the de Gosbrand Hospital, named for him. Over here, 1731, the French fort at Chimney Point. By the early 1700s, the French were alarmed about British plans for Lake Champlain and their trade with, quote-unquote, the Indians. In 1731, King Louis XV of France wrote his officials in New France, quote, His Majesty desires that a stockade fort be erected, unquote, at Pointe à la Chevalier, which is Chimney Point, until a stronger one can be constructed. With this bold move, the French gained control of the entire lake. A small force of soldiers stationed here could block the English to the south from entering the lake and gaining easy access to Canada. If the French allowed the English into the lake, they could not, quote, make war against them except with a large army, unquote. In April 1731, Lieutenant Etienne Robert de Marandière, assistant royal engineer from Montreal, was hired for 250 livres to draw up plans for the fortifications stockade of wooden posts. He was on site from mid-August to November. Lieutenant Zachary Francois Etel de la Fresenière supervised the 86 or more soldiers and workmen who constructed the fort. The fort was positioned on the strategic bluff, commanding views up and down and across the lake and with a full range of fire. Erdel de Moncourt and Jean-Baptiste François Etel de Revel were appointed as commanders. In 1734, the French began building a larger, permanent stone fort directly across Lake Champlain. The next year, they dismantled this fort de pied, likely to keep it out of enemy hands. Quote, various carpenters, unquote, were paid 145 livres to demolish the fort, and various soldiers were paid 115 livres to transport by boat the debris of the old fort. The lumber was reused at the new fort. Stoneware, what is this stuff? Number 3. Reproduction Santon ware, 1989. These reproduction mugs and bowl illustrate the distinctive look of Santon ware. Bright green glaze covers the buff earthenware. Beautiful, eh? That's quite the, looks like an axe head to me. Number 7. Exactly what it looks like. Number 7. What's number 7? French axe head, circa 1731. In 1731, the French brought 50 large and 10 small hachette axe heads from the King's store in Montreal to build their fort and to get firewood. This axe head was found in 2010 under the mounded soils of the 1929 bridge approach. Its shape is typical of the French period. Such axes also were provided in the 1740s and 50s to all the French settlers here. Glare everywhere. These are the adversaries. On the left, the governor of New France, Charles de la Boche, the Marquis de Beauharnois, carried out the orders of King Louis XV to build a fort in 1731 at Point-à-la-Chevalier, Chimney Point. It's presumed a portrait of Charles de la Boche, circa 1748, and the dude on the right, James, Earl of Waldegrave, the English ambassador to France, objected vigorously to the French military presence in what the English felt was their territory. James Waldegrave, first Earl Waldegrave, circa 1738 to 40, by Gustav Lundberg, artist, National Portrait Gallery, London. We have a chair that they don't want you to sit on. Chaise à la Capucine, Quebec. You can read that. So I pause to read it. Cast iron box stove, which is this right here, of course. This is circa 1820s, manufactured by Forge Saint-Maurice, Quebec. This cast iron box stove was made by the Forge Saint-Maurice near Trois-Rivières, Quebec. 3 rivers, by the way. F. Saint M. can be seen on the bottom front below the door. Okay. Yes, we can. Right there. All right, let's move into this room as well. I do have a couple of videos you can watch in here too. Let's see, a couple of chairs that you can sit in order to watch. Shaping the land, the French settle in 1743 to 1759. The French and British collide 1754 to 59. The English and a new era 1759 to 74. More artifacts. The legend that tells you about these things is right there. Anything that screaming my name? Number 4. This stuff up. This number 4 is right there. Number 4, bottle fragments. Various fragments of early wine, liquor, and other bottles were recovered during the excavations at Chimney Point. Alcohol consumption was part of life on the European frontier. There were no glassworks in the region, so bottles were reused as containers for other liquids, foods, oils, or even gunpowder. Number 12 was part of a shoe buckle. Number 13 is cast iron cauldron fragment. I don't know, it's the little kid in me. You hear the word cauldron, I think it's Shakespeare, don't you? Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. What is number 3? No, all these are number 1. Hoe, ice chipper, and shovel blade. Wait, that can't be right. Must be hoe, ice chipper, shovel blade. Mid-1700s, King Louis XV supplied settlers with farm tools, including axes and shovels. French settlers would have used these hand tools, found near here, in their everyday work to clear the land and establish their farms. The metal shovel blade edge was fitted over a wooden blade. Neat. Building a New Nation, 1775 to 85. This is really neat. This right here. I love things like this. what's on this side. Oh, shadows. It says here, Les Français in Champlain Valley by Michael J. Chudry. Artifact drawers. One of these little dioramas here. It says, please pull drawers out carefully. Oh, I will. Wow. Those musket balls. Yeah, these are ammunition and armaments over time. Native American projectile points, gun flints, musket balls, shot and gun fragments from the French, British, and American occupations. Well, let's pull out another drawer. Pottery material and styles over time. Pottery ranging from the Native American woodland period to the late 1800s. The Native American pottery and the redware were manufactured locally. Look at that. Isn't that stuff beautiful? Let's see if I come over here and photograph without the shadows a little bit. And we have one more drawer to look in. What are these? What do you think these unidentified objects are? Take a closer look to notice unique characteristics such as shape, different types of abrasions, and evidence of drilling. How about this? Artifact identification, which is here. Archaeologists can identify small broken artifact fragments by studying more complete examples. At right are some examples of Levano points found here at Chimney Point. Wow. All right. Let's look a little closer to that one too. Oh, shadows. Shadows are my bane. All right. Well, this is Patricia and I'm traveling for history. This is essentially Native American, French, and some English history. And hope you've enjoyed learning with me today. If you decide to come up to Chimney Point to visit, if you live in Vermont, you can use a state park pass. If you don't have one, go to your local library. Each of them has one. You can borrow for a day. For free. Your library card has to be in good standing. We have to have a library card. It has to be in good standing in your town. Otherwise, it's $6 to come on in as of the filming of today's video. So until I see you again, hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and thanks for coming along. See you soon. Bye now.